Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today we're looking at a pile of pasta, some suspiciously overpriced shoes, and a strain of quiet desperation that is just a little too intense to be that of a boy. Today we are looking at the secret life of the Bailey Hinobi store's top glitch tech, Mitch Williams. Now, from the beginning, Mitch's character has been a cipher to me. He was introduced as a hero with all of the hallmarks thereof, and yet a hero who easily and casually violated the minds and property of the people he protected. That introduction was sidetracked when he displayed his arrogance and ruthlessness in attorney. Until he stole the pasta, he never did anything one could strictly label dishonorable. His ruthlessness came in the game was entirely rule-abiding. The kid that he kicked over the side was himself displaying terrible etiquette by interrupting Mitch during gameplay. His seemingly sly words to fives are simply ironic when looked at from the perspective of a focused player. He was giving fives an important lesson in focus and not idolizing other players. They were all just gamers, fellow competitors and rivals after all. Fives even seemed to recognize this at the time. He was embarrassed, but mainly embarrassed by his own lack of focus, and simply took the lesson Mitch offered and refocused on the game. It made, even in a few moments, Fives a better player. In that entire gaming sequence, Mitch does nothing dishonorable. As much as the creators key us up to dislike Mitch for his attitude, he never once breaks the rules of the game, the rules he has chosen to abide by. And no, when you really look at that scene, Mitch never stole Fives' win. First off, the win wasn't strictly by the rules, as Five hit the winning blow with Me-K.O's ball. That isn't the issue that validates Mitch's actions, however. A question of the rules should be decided by the authorities of the game. In this case, Phil is the resident Hinobi tech, and taking the issue to the authorities is exactly what Mitch did. He immediately accepted his loss by the rules of the game and ported out of the game to bring the issue up to Phil for mediation. And what did Phil decide? Everyone in the audience was to be mind-wipe, and all of the players were to be mind-wipe, even the ones still hanging around in the staging area. Me-K.O at home had an attempted mind-wipe, even. Mitch didn't order those mind-wipes. Again, let's focus on this point. Mitch didn't steal Five's win. Mitch was going to challenge the legitimacy of Five's win through the proper channels. Again, focus on that because the show is trying really hard to distract us from that fact. Mitch didn't steal Five's win. Phil invalidated it. Zara, Hanish, and the other glitch techs that we're supposed to like more than we do Mitch saw what was happening without caring, and none of the Hinobi employees were mind-wiped after the fact, so they knew the entire time. The entire end of the tournament was being recorded by Hinobi tech, which would have been immune to the wiping process. Phil, Zara, everyone we're supposed to like more than we do Mitch, they knew who won the tournament. They knew that Fives had made the winning shot. They knew that he had done it with Me-K.O's ball. They knew, they just didn't care. Phil was ultimately the one who stole Fives' win. Except Fives' win was never stolen because the win was never given to anybody. The whole thing was just invalidated. Why? Most likely it was because integrating Fives after the Plixel breach would have been a bother, and Phil just couldn't be bothered. The only fault that you can actually lay at Mitch's door is that he seemed pleased with a bad attitude that Phil gave the order. And again, Five's win was questionable by the formal rules of the game, so that is hardly a moral failing for someone who is as rules-abiding as Mitch. Now, you can certainly point out a lot of odd aspects of Mitch's behavior, things that people wouldn't like, things that are unpleasant. Mitch did go out of his way to return the taco truck to the alley in person, and to personally remove Five's wristband, and that is very, very odd. It makes me wonder if his visual similarity to Odysee the Knives is more than just artistic coincidence, because Mitch knew who each of those gamers were. Hinobi had sent them all the wristbands, so Mitch would have had access to Me-K.O's address. He knew Me-K.O, who had just as big a part to play in his fall from the top as Fives did. So why didn't Mitch go and take her wristband too? For every other player, he trusted the mind wipe would be enough, that they wouldn't question the wristbands. Why did he steal Five's wristband? Why did he physically drive the van back instead of simply rewinding it like we have seen him do time and again? And we know that he didn't rewind the van because the first clue that Fives had that he had gone anywhere was that the van wasn't sitting perfectly on its tracks. Had it been rewound, not only would it have been sitting perfectly on its tracks, there wouldn't have been any more tracks in the first place. The rubber streaks left on the asphalt would have been erased. That means that Mitch actually physically drove the van back to its position in the alley. Furthermore, what was Mitch doing in that tournament anyway? The grand prize was supposed to be a job at Hinobi, and there didn't seem to be any allowance for a runner-up. You either won or you failed the game. What was going to happen if Mitch won? Would Hinobi have simply gone without a needed employee for a whole nother year? The whole situation is very odd, and the focal point of the oddity, according to the in-universe logic, is Mitch's behavior. It makes sense that the rest of the Hinobi store employees couldn't care less if Fives or Me-K.O got the job or not, and they couldn't care less who won the tourney. They didn't seem to be terribly overworked, and the store has a reputation for being run slipshod. So what would they care if they have one employee more or less? But Mitch cared. Mitch cared so much that he took Five's wristband when he took no one else's. He cared so much that he drove the van home personally, as shown by his comment about the alley that you crawled out of. As the show goes on, you get the same duality. Mitch never actually does anything wrong according to the rules of Hinobi, the rules that he has agreed to live by, his own moral code. The same rules that Fives and Me-K.O play by, the same metric that we are holding the hero to. However, because Mitch is so unpleasant in the way he goes about doing right, we feel like he is doing something wrong. When he captures Captain Kazoom and makes that snide comment about thanking Fives for the distraction, he is doing nothing wrong. Fives and Me-K.O were in fact distracted, endangering everyone in the room, including themselves. Mitch was literally just doing his job, in fact protecting Fives and Me-K.O and the innocents all around him. But he spoke the truth, a truth about the distractions that Fives and Me-K.O probably needed to hear, in a mocking tone, so we don't like it. Mitch gave Fives solid advice in leading the team in Alpha Leader, but he gave it without the empathy necessary to get Fives to internalize the nuance of what he meant about showing confidence and keeping the team calm, so we don't like it. Fives really needed that advice, or he would have gone into that team leader situation radiating the usual unease and disquiet that would have compromised the team's efficiency. So we don't like Mitch's remarks because of how Fives took them. Then Mitch pointed out that Fives and Me-K.O shouldn't seek petty emotional affirmation from their leaders when said leaders are still in the middle of a boss battle with a Cthulhu monster, but he did it with a snarl of frustration, so we don't like the fact that Mitch pointed out a legitimate flaw in Fives and Me-K.O. Even when Mitch was ruthlessly hunting Fives' friend, Casino, to get the possession glitch, he had a logic and rationality on his side. Yes, Mitch seemed willing to risk harming Casino, however, the possessor glitch was dangerous, very dangerous. It could essentially alter reality, and let alone blowing Hinobi's cover, that glitch could have easily gotten someone killed. And we see this explicitly stated in the show, that Mitch was right, and Fives was risking not only his own life, but Casino's life, and the lives of anybody else who they were exposed to. By letting the possessor glitch run loose, Fives and Me-K.O were endangering lives. And ultimately, Fives was putting his friend in just as much danger as Mitch was theoretically willing to put Casino in. Moreover, rules-abiding Mitch could have gotten them in a lot of trouble with the store if he had reported them, which he could have done at any time. And by the rules of Hinobi, he should have reported them. You might say that he didn't want to share the XP from catching the possessor glitch, but he had no trouble at all sharing his XP with Zahara and Hanish in later episodes in any other situation. Why didn't he call the store for backup to help subdue the mapper glitch? Why didn't he privately call Zara and Hanish, one of them, to come help him take out Fives and Me-K.O? But he didn't, and more specifically, neither Fives nor Me-K.O thought that he would. Me-K.O trapped him in those pink kitten bubbles twice. He could have called out during that time. He could have called out while he was driving along the highway. But he didn't. And more significantly, neither Fives or Me-K.O it never even occurred to them that he would call for help. They trusted him. They trusted that Mitch was going to handle this on his own, that he was going to meet them with fair play according to their rules of the game. And when they were in that bubble, he didn't fight Me-K.O. He never hit Me-K.O. He incapacitated her, but he didn't mind wipe her. Mitch is playing by his rules. And more specifically, one of his rules is made very clear here. Mitch protects his own. He would ultimately not do something to harm Fives or Me-K.O. Casino, Fives' friend, a friend of a friend, didn't make the cut and fell outside of Mitch's protection, but Mitch does religiously protect his own. Remember back to the end of the first episode pair. Ultimately, it had to have been Mitch who presented Me-K.O. and Fives to Phil. And looking at all these clues, I don't think that Fives and Me-K.O. would have been hired without Mitch's protection. I think Phil would have just mind-wiped Fives per his previous decision and would have dealt with Me-K.O. however Hinobi deals with such problems, and given how creepy and shady Hinobi has shown itself to be, that is not a pleasant prospect. Fives and Me-K.O. proved themselves to Mitch in that arcade, when they rescued him from the kiddie game. Whether or not Mitch liked it, he had to ask them for help. He had to acknowledge them as glitch techs. They had a bonding moment. They were, to wit, from that moment on, his. And from that fight in the arcade, they were therefore under his protection. Now, there is still the problem of the wristband. Why did Mitch take Fives' wristband? Why did he personally return the van? Why did he keep Fives' wristband privately instead of returning it to Phil? Something that shows lampshades pretty clearly. Remember, Phil ordered the mind wipe. It would make sense for Mitch to hand over the wristband for proper Hinobi destruction. Why did Mitch keep it? The show seems to be building to a strong but shadowy connection between the Knives and Mitch, and I honestly don't know what to make of it. I think the problem is that Mitch cares more than just what might be Hinobi interests. I think, in fact, that Mitch is a single father with a family to feed, and everything he does is to protect that family. A bit of a stretch, you say? A theory out of left field, you say? Yes, it is. So come along and take this stretch with me. Here is the concept. Mitch Williams is a man with a secret. He has a family on the side that he is doing his best to protect and provide for. A family that Hinobi Corp cannot find out about, or there will be horrible consequences. However, Hinobi Corporation controls Bailey, and most of what the glitch techs do is monitored and recorded. So, Mitch has to lead a constant double life, leading to the strange duality displayed in his nature. Now, how, you ask, how did I reach this concept? Let's look at some clues. There's something different about Mitch. This is clearly visually outlined in the show. His visor is red compared to the blues of everybody else's visors. Now, occasionally a visor will flash red or show red in a certain light, but Mitch's is almost always red. There's something different about him, about how he sees the world. Now, in traditional tropiness, if you have a mechanical visual system, the red system is evil and the blue system is good. But this show twists tropes and hides behind them, so we can't trust it. First, let's take a look at Mitch Williams' name. Mitch is the diminutive of Mitchell or Michael, which translates roughly into a gift from God. This might be a subtle reference to Mitch's arrogance, but Mitch's arrogance doesn't have that particular flavor, to put it one way. He doesn't really believe that he's a gift to the world. He doesn't believe that people like him for who he is. He just believes that he's right all the time, and he usually is. Now, the source of the name Mitchell is the archangel famous for doing battle with Satan, the big S. He is not just the patron saint of soldiers, but the primary patron saint of soldiers and police, specifically in their duties as defenders of the peace and defenders of the innocent. And that's just the first name. Williams is also a very telling name because the root meaning of Williams is protector, and in some iterations, ironically, protector with a gilded helmet. Rather amusing given Mitch's focus on his hair and hair products. The point being that both names really focus on the point of being a protector. In the same way that Knives means Snow White and is frequently a name given to people with white hair. Looking at you, Abuela Knives. That aside, both Mitch and Williams are common names, and this might just be because they are common. And that's the only reason that he got both of them. And this is a reference to, I think it was Billy Mitchell, who was an avid gamer. I'm not a gaming geek. and such a strong emphasis on the concept of protection is telling. Next, let's look at Mitch's behavior. For the vast majority of his screen time, Mitch behaves as the lead hero of an anime should. He is orderly and abides by the rules to a fault. He is fearless, jumping into danger without thought and never asking his subordinates to do something that he wouldn't do, that he was scared to do. Mitch clearly cares about what he does. He puts his heart into being a glitch tech. He mentors the younger techs to the best of his ability, even if that ability isn't top-notch as a mentor. He never denigrates anyone's actual accomplishments. If a glitch tech does good, he freely acknowledges their success. He trusts his team. He holds younger glitch techs to a tough but ultimately fair standard. He does his job with efficiency and skill. His experienced team members trust him enough to make him the butt of playful jokes. Mitch should, by any standard trope logic, be a solid hero, but there's that same odd duality to him that runs through the rest of the show. He is bitter and caustic on the surface to the point that it repels even a diehard fan of his like Fives. And yet, while he's doing this, he's imparting important life lessons like the necessity of doing your job quietly and not expecting praise for mere competency. He is harsh and almost mocking, though. He lacks a certain empathy that would let him be a truly good teacher rather than just leading by example like he does. He is rule-abiding nearly to the point of neurosis, freaking out when somebody breaks his limited view of the rules. However, the vast majority of his on-screen faults can be written off as simple personality disagreeableness. Disagreeableness that is only surface deep if the free and easy way that Zahara and Hanish interact with him is any indication of what he's like when the camera's not on him. Mitch seems to have covered himself with emotional prickles to keep everyone at a distance, and this idea of him pushing everyone away is a running theme with his character. Look at his chosen teammates, Zara and Hanish. They are both highly competent, but with little ambition. They don't make emotional demands of him. They don't ask questions. You get the feeling that they don't pursue him in his private life. They just quietly do their job, support him in the field, and leave him alone when he goes solo or when he goes home. On the inside, his van is scrawled with the words, "No noobs." He always keeps these barriers up between himself and the other glitch techs, especially ones who might ask questions. This is all in spite of the fact that he clearly cares for the other glitch techs. When Fives takes over the team, all of Mitch's concerns are for how it will affect Zahara and Hanish. He freely offers the best advice and products that he has to Fives. And ultimately, it wasn't Mitch's fault that Fives didn't have the experience to apply that advice. Mitch never once denies it when another tech displays skill and quietly offers his praise and approval. As long as they aren't asking for more praise and approval, then he calculates that their skill deserves according to the rules. And so long as they don't ask when he's actively battling an Elder Demon glitch. Mitch is constantly honest with all of the techs, to the point of bluntness and rudeness. Those of his faults that can't simply be written off as disagreeableness usually make sense within the limitations of his character. Mitch takes care of his fellow glitch. That makes him coldly ruthless towards anyone who isn't his, for lack of a better word. Once more, remember, it wasn't Mitch who stole Five's win. It was Phil who ordered everyone mind wipe and invalidated Five's win, making sure no one got it. Zara and Nyx were equally complicit in the mind wipe process that erased Five's wins. The crime of stealing Five's win never actually fell anywhere near solidly on Mitch's shoulders. His part in the event was simply what Me-K.O and Fives, and therefore the audience, saw and focused on. Mitch had his orders and was following them in the same way that Me-K.O and Fives would learn to do. So as the audience, we either look at Mitch as if he did nothing wrong in that situation, nothing villainous in following his orders, or we have to look at our erstwhile heroes, Me-K.O and Fives, who are now every bit as guilty as Mitch of whatever crime Mitch is supposed to have committed in that scene. So, we have Mitch who didn't steal Fives' win, but who quietly took the blame for it rather than point Fives and Me-K.O at the real culprit to confront him. We have Mitch who protects his own. We have Mitch who took them to Phil and kept them from confronting him about the win, and kept Phil from just mind-wiping the two inconveniences that they represented. We have Mitch who follows the rules to the T. We have Mitch who is shown as a real leader, never asking more of his team than he does of himself. A perfect Hinobi employee. So, what do you think, my wonderful viewers? Does Mitch have a family hidden off somewhere so that Hinobi can't hurt him? Can you think of any other time in the show that he did something that came close to the pasta theft in terms of bad behavior. Because you see, the theft of the pasta, as petty as that seems, was the only dishonorable thing that Mitch did. And it stands out apart from all of his other behavior as the only wrong thing that he has done. It is a glaring sore on the surface of a character who otherwise has no mortal faults. So, Mitch, who follows the rules to a T. Mitch, who is shown as a true leader, a good leader, never asking more of his team than he does of himself. The perfect Hinobi employee. Leave a like below if you agree, and leave a comment blasting this theory like a roach glitch if you disagree. Check out my Teespring link below and see some weird human merch, and hit that subscribe button. Remember, this is only part 1. In part 2, we will go why I think that the secret that Mitch is clearly hiding is a family. Again, remember, my theory is that Mitch is a single father, and we will get into that in the next video. Peace out, my wonderful viewers.